Hi guys, welcome to this episode on 5 common mistakes that photographers make whilst on location. This is a video that I'm making for you guys from my own personal experiences that I've made whilst I've been on location. So let's get started. So the 5 common mistakes. Number 1, exposure. When you're on location, when you're a new photographer, you are probably not thinking that much about exposure. You're probably thinking about you want to get the best quality images, and you probably have not got that much knowledge in terms of the aperture, shutter and the ISO and all those how those 3 tools work in conjunction with each other and the surrounding light to capture those images. So it's really important that you learn those features before you start to go out and take pictures. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are controlling your aperture and your shutter and your ISO within the environment that you're working in. That's critical. So let me give you a scenario. You are indoors, maybe you're doing a birthday party and it's in a venue and it's very dark, and you're maybe shooting in auto because you haven't got that much settings and your pictures are coming out a little bit dark. What you would need to probably do is go into your settings, put it into manual mode and probably change your aperture and your shutter, maybe increase and decrease it, your f-stop and your shutter speed, in order to get a better balance of light for that particular image. So what you need to do is control it. The second thing that you might want to think about is using natural light. I cannot comprehend how useful natural light is, and you don't sometimes think about the environment you're in, the way you're positioning yourself. For example, you're in front of a window, you're going to get a silhouette, but if you're facing in the opposite way, you might get a nice soft look. If you do it from a certain angle, you might get a soft look. So you might want to think about the positioning of where you are positioning yourself towards, dependent on the light. So as a studio photographer, you might want to think about how you are controlling that bit of light. Sometimes you might have shadows from natural light. That's not a bad thing because you'll get a soft look. What I tend to do sometimes when it's a real bright sunny day, I try to take my subjects into a softer shadowy area. There's still brilliant light, but I get a nice softer look, and it's not a harsh contrast of light. So I'm not using diffusers behind them above to sort of counterbalance that natural light, so don't get a harsh, coarse look on an image. You might also want to think about using the time of day you're shooting. So in the mornings, in the evenings, you'll get different tones of temperature of light within your image that will give you a nice contrast of image. So you definitely want to think about how you use those times in a day to get the nice quality of image that you might want to capture. So exposure is really, really important. It's not just a case of clicking, and if you're using your phone, you're probably just clicking away and not thinking about the use of light and how that light is controlled within a given environment, and using the aperture and your shutter and your ISO in conjunction to those natural lights to get the best quality image. So really think about that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is pace. And pace is really, really important because obviously when you're on location, you're shooting, you might want to think about the speed of what you're doing. When you start off, you're excited. You're just like, oh my days, I got a new camera. I just want to take pictures. And as I've seen, little children doing it, they get so excited because they want to put it on their social media, post it to their friends, and it's exciting. However, if you want to sort of get good at it, you need to think about slowing down. Go to your environment, take a few test shots, see what it's like. Maybe do a pre-rehearsal of the event that you're doing. Maybe do a pre-shoot. Have a schedule of some sort of times that you're going to shoot in terms of what you're going to shoot. And just slow down. Basically slow down, because the more slower you do it, the more you can think about your environment, think about your light, think about your settings on your camera. It's not always about settings as well, camera features. It's about using your creativity in the environment to see what's around you, to be able to use those things in a creative way, and that takes time and thinking, so you need to slow down to get those things. Planning. Plan your shoot. If you are a studio photographer, you should be thinking about planning contacting models, having risk assessments, having release forms. What I mean by release form is forms to release the pictures of the models, makeup artists, special effects, prosthetic, whoever it may be, gets that bit of material to you. So all that, make sure everyone's got all the information before you start the shoot. Have a backup plan. If you're a wedding photographer, you do location shoots, you know, go onto Google Maps, check where you're going, check your sat navs, know where you're going, check all your equipment, check your tripods. Make sure you do all these things before you set off. Don't just put your camera in your car, get in your car and drive away. Nah. Check everything the night before. What I tend to do is have a list. You know, from experience, I have like a checklist now, and I make sure that I check things off to make sure that everything's right. For example, batteries. I check all my batteries are charged up, so I go to my settings in my camera, look at the battery life of each camera to see how much life. It gives you little bars, but you know, bars don't tell you percentage. So you know, I like to check the percentage of how much battery life I've got left on my camera. So when I am on location, I know that I am ready to go. It's critical that you do these things so you don't fail on location. Also, sometimes what I do is when I check out the venue and I check that they've got power sources, I check that I can use dollies if I'm using a drone, which I don't tend to do, but if I do use a drone, I'll just check that I'm able to use those things on location when I'm doing the show. So planning is critical when you are doing your photography or filming to make sure you get it right. Shooting raw. So if you're a studio photographer, so this is number four, shooting raw. Why raw? Because obviously it captures more detail, dispatches the files a bit bigger. If I'm doing a wedding, I sometimes shoot in raw and JPEG. So if I'm doing, say, the bride, and I'm going to take about 20-30 pictures of her, maybe different poses, close-ups, super close-ups, macro shots, maybe the ring, maybe certain things I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change my settings to raw and capture those images in particular to raw because I want to capture more detail. Okay, so that's a really good tip for you guys. Equipment. Make sure you check all your equipment, make sure it's all in working order, make sure nothing's broken. I had a scenario with my Canon 7D where it was coming up with an error 30. So basically error 30 was there was something wrong with the shutter. So you might want to check all your cameras, all your batteries, check your SD cards, see if there's any corruptions with your SD cards, see SD cards are okay. You know, you might want to also think about the settings on your camera, and you know, that's equipment as well, shall I say, and just check that all the settings are in correct order. You might want to put them in, if you've got like a professional camera, you might want to put it in control 1, 2 and 3, so you've got an internal setting, external setting, and maybe a low light setting, so you don't need to fiddle around with your camera, just put it at 1, 2, 3 and you get those real nice shots. You might want to also consider using the rule of third. And what the rule of third is basically a grid on your camera. Again, you go to your menu, go to your settings and put it to your grid. I always say put it onto your grid format because then when you're shooting picture or film, you can frame it up so it's in parallel. So if you've got a rule of third, you can put your subject on a line, and when you go into post-production, you're editing, everything's better framed up and there's less cropping in Lightroom or Photoshop that you need to do. So that's really good idea to do. I wouldn't suggest you don't do that. I would suggest you do that because it will just frame your image up so much better. Okay, so that's me done. 5 tips. So 5 tips. 5 mistakes to avoid on location. 1, exposure. 2, the pace that you're going at. 3, planning. 4, shooting raw. And number 5, equipment. So some basic things, some tips and tricks. Hopefully they'll be useful for yourselves. You know, I appreciate you, all the people that are watching me all around the world. Please subscribe. You know, I want to share, so it's you know, it's a share of knowledge. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.